So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 10th episode of Highbury Matters. Tonight, I've got a special guest, as always. We'll be discussing the 82-83 season and 83-84 seasons. You may recognise him, so let's see if you do. Evening, Richard. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Good to be a guest on the channel for a change.
If you don't know what you're doing, I'll help you through it. I'll treat you gently. Is that all right?
Yeah, you might need to. Yeah, just to keep me right, because I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm sure you'd be a big help.
Right. Question I always ask people is, when did you support the Arsenal? And big question, why?
Well, I mean, I suppose my story is maybe slightly different to many people in that I wasn't really from a football family, if you like. My dad or any of my family didn't take me to football when I was young. I kind of got into football myself. And I suppose why Arsenal? Well, it came about really every year we used to watch the FA Cup final at home as a family. And obviously 1978, Arsenal were playing Ipswich. And me and my sister were up early watching it from the start. It was on the telly, and my mum just happened to walk into the sitting room. Who's playing today? She said. We were like, oh, it's Ipswich against Arsenal. And then she just told us a story about the fact that when her family had moved to London from Burma in 1945, they'd actually lived in Finsbury Park, Green Lanes, and that was her local team. And that kind of got me interested straight away, thinking, oh, hang on. And so obviously that day I wanted Arsenal to win that game due to that reason. And then after that, I kind of persuaded my mum to take me in the school holidays to where she used to live. And of course, I managed to persuade her to take me to look at Highbury because it was around the corner. And just seeing the first time we walked up Avenel Road, coming out the tube station, the windy tunnel, coming out the tube station, walking up Avenel Road, seeing that main stand for the first time, it was like, wow. And that was it then. That was it straight away. My team had been born, if you like. So, yeah, pretty much from that, really.
And what year was your first game there? Do you remember?
Yeah, my first game was not till 1981. The reason being that I didn't have anyone to go with. In the end, I managed to persuade my sister to take me. She was more of a West Ham fan. We grew up in a very West Ham area, sort of Romford, Hornchurch way. And I'd sort of gone with her to a few West Ham games previously. And eventually I managed to persuade her to take me to Highbury. So it was October 1981, my first game against Manchester City. And just walking up the steps into the North Bank and coming up the top, seeing the pitch for the first time, it was like, it took your breath away. It was just amazing. And yeah, that was it really. From that, before then I knew Arsenal was my team, but from that moment, just getting to the top of the North Bank stairs, looking at that pitch, it was like, wow, this is home. And that's basically what it became.
Yeah, it's a bit like, you're finding yourself, isn't it, really? You got to go, this is it. This is what my life should be about. Yeah. Nothing else seems to matter to a degree. It was that for me as well. Amazing. So 1981. Yeah. So who were your favourite players around then?
I mean, my first real kind of favourite player was probably Brian Talbot. And a lot of that had came from obviously watching the cup finals on the telly before, a few games on the telly I'd seen him playing. And sort of seeing him live, he just seemed to be everywhere. He just never stopped running, did he? He was defending, he was attacking. He was kind of the modern day box-to-box midfield player, I suppose. And he always stood out for me. So, yeah, probably my first season, I would say him. Obviously, Alan Sunderland was still a very, very good player, even though he was maybe past his peak and he was missing Frank Staple. And obviously, he was a great player. And, they were probably the two. Obviously, David O'Leary was another great one. Kenny Sampson. I mean, I always liked Kenny Sampson because, one, he was left-footed like me. And I was at that age, and he was kind of a player that I kind of looked up to try and want to be like, I suppose. So he was one of the early heroes of mine as well.
Kenny Sampson was quite strange because for a fullback, I'm not saying fullbacks haven't got the talent, of course they have, but he had the talent of a midfielder or a forward. He had such close control, and even when he tackled, he very rarely failed. He read the game so well, and he could tackle so well and understood the game so well. He was, I thought, at left back which was his. We always played left back. I thought he was a bit over.
Overqualified.
Overqualified. Yeah, he was. He was so good.
Yeah,
So good.
He was a very good footballer. Yeah, he was.
Brilliant footballer. And glad to see he's back on the way up now, isn't he?
He looks like it. Yeah, he's had some difficult times, hasn't he, poor old Kenny? But he seems to be on the up, which is good. Yeah.
Saw a program about him about a year or two. I don't know how many years ago it is now. It might be 2, could be 4. Everything's gone mad, isn't it? The last couple of years.
Yeah.
And he was on his downers big time. People have offered to help him. An Arsenal supporter had this special home, and it was like, no, I don't want to do it. Like, what? If you don't do it, mate, you just, with all due respect, but he's got over the hill and fantastic.
Yeah.
What have you got any? Not about games so much because we go into that, but how many favourite moments at Highbury? Like, obviously, one of your favourite moments when you first got there, went, wow, this is it. Anything else? Any other favourite moments?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I mean, for 25 years, I always looked on Highbury as my second home, really. No matter what was going on in your life, that was always there. And that was always your release every other Saturday, really, wasn't it? Just being at Highbury. I mean, I suppose my favourite ever moment or memory at Highbury would be, I know a lot of people have said it before, obviously 98, the Everton game when we won the Premier League for the first time, actually seeing us win the title. I know we'd won it at Highbury in 91, technically the Man United game, but we were already champions before that game. But the Everton game, we had to get a result to seal the title. So that was probably the stat, and obviously that game was so famous for the Tony Adams goal and everything else that went on. So that's probably my favourite sort of moment, really, seeing us win the Premier League, lifting that trophy on the Highbury pitch, having seen us win that game to seal the title. That was probably the top moment. I mean, there's just so many, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how many games I would have gone to at Highbury, hundreds and hundreds of them, and I liked. My favourite kind of era was that sort of early mid 80s, really, when it was all new to me. It was fresh, and although the football wasn't very good, just being at football then was such a great experience. And that's why these 2 particular seasons that we're going to be talking about are so special to me, because they were the first 2 seasons that I started going to every game. So that they really, really was important. And to say I was 14, 15 at the time, so it was quite an important age in my life as well. So most of my favourite memories from Highbury would probably be sort of 80s and 90s, really. And then towards the end, we had a great team with the Invincibles and stuff at the end of Highbury. But I suppose it was different by then for some reason. I don't know why, whether because it was all seater or what it was, I don't know. But it was different. And although it was great, the memories that I have more that stick to my mind are more from the previous generation, maybe, than the more recent kind of Highbury, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, you went to away games as well then, that era, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my first away game was actually West Ham in 1981, but that was only because it was my local team anyway. The first away game I went to, sort of outside of London, if you like, was Ipswich, which was in the 1982-83 season, early on in that season. That was Ipswich away, was my first sort of outside London away game. And I started going pretty regularly after that. I used to get the trains of football specials as they were. You could just roll up on the day, you just turn up at Euston or King's Cross, whatever it was, jump on a train, pay on the door when you got there. You didn't have to plan it weeks in advance. It was so much easier. And yes, it wasn't always safe, to be honest. Especially in the 80s, it wasn't safe at all. But it was so much easier to go. You could just decide on the morning. I had a mate of mine I used to go with. He used to be a Chelsea fan, funnily enough. And I took him to Arsenal one night. It was a game against West Brom in the end of the 81-82 season. And we were 2-0 down with about 5 minutes to go. And then we scored 2 goals and got a draw. And he loved it. And from then, he was an Arsenal fan. And he became my kind of buddy to go football with. And we used to go everywhere together. And sometimes, we'd have an away game somewhere. I don't know, it might be Everton or Liverpool or Manchester United or somewhere. You get up in the morning on a Saturday, I'd ring him, do you fancy going to the game? And he's like, yeah, all right. And then we just go. And it was that. And it was great because you could do that. And other times you can think, I can't be bothered today. I'd rather do something else. And you wouldn't go. Or you maybe go and watch the reserves at Highbury or something like that. But it was so good then because you didn't need to buy tickets weeks in advance and plan your travel and all that kind of stuff. You could just literally wake up in the morning and say, yeah, let's go. And get on a train and go. It's brilliant.
I mean, when you went to these away grounds, I noticed it, how different the away grounds were to Highbury.
Yeah.
So many different things. I mean, the way the ground was, Highbury was set out so It was like like you could look from one side to the other, look the same. It was like all the other grounds. I remember going to Southampton. They had a strange one of the goals, which I don't know if you remember.
It was wonky, wasn't it? It was like wonky stand, wasn't it? Yeah.
From left to right, and it wasn't from behind. It was the way. I mean, normally it goes like that. Theirs went the other way. It was really strange. It seemed to diminish. The stand used to diminish to the corner flag to a degree. It was very, very strange. I mean, Crystal Palace I went to, that looked like a fire hazard from day one. That was like, I remember after the final whistle one game, it might have been in the late 60s, early 70s, going with my uncle, the guy, as I said, I support the Arsenal. And we were like, end of the game, and we weren't moving. For whatever reason, the game was finished, the crowd, I said to my uncle, if anything happens here, we are in a mess. Because I'm telling you, it was like, there were no rules or regulation years ago, as you know, that was different. But also, I've said it before, we didn't have the corner flags, have floodlights like the grounds did. Everything seemed to be, a lot of the grounds, some were very nice, don't get me wrong, but they didn't have, a lot of them like rusty, there was metal everywhere, and Arsenal was brickwork. Yeah, and it, you know what I mean, and it was
class. It was classy, wasn't it? It was everything. And one of the things that really attracted me to Arsenal, once I started getting a little bit older and I could start to understand the history and reading books and stuff like this on Arsenal's history, and just being at Highbury, you've got a sense of class. The club was a class above everybody else. Like you said, you go to other grounds, and some of the grounds were all right, you know, but they didn't have that touch of class that Highbury had and that Arsenal had. And I don't know, that's always something that has been so important to me, because it was one of the things that really drew me in to the club in the first place and drew me into Highbury. And now I feel as though we've lost that a little bit now at the Emirates and stuff like that. And that's a shame, really, because the younger generation aren't going to maybe have that same draw in as we maybe got at Highbury because of how it was. Like you said, you know, the Art Deco stands, listed buildings that are still there now, even though the ground's not there. You don't, most other grounds that have been knocked down, they're housing estates now. You'd never know a ground was there, but at Highbury, it's still there. You can still see that fantastic East Stand on Avenel Road. And it's, you know, and that's something that you're never going to be able to take away. And the other grounds, you can forget about them easily enough, but Highbury will always be there forever. And that just shows how classy it was at the time.
One of the things, I know it's small, but it always stuck in my mind. When I went to an away ground, got bought a programme, stood or whatever, later days sat down, but stood, and it just stuck in my mind. And I hope people say you're wrong. I believe I was right to remember this. That on the tannoy, they always gave the home team first the same changes. Arsenal, we always did the away team first.
It was.
Bit of respect. I don't know, I'm correct there, aren't
I? I remember it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I used to sit there and stand up and go, you know what that is? We are the Arsenal. There's a reason we call it the Arsenal.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons. Yeah, just a little bit. And also I think, widely known that we used to give opponents. We used to send some flowers before a game or something when they come to Highbury in the team's colours, present it to the chairman. A little bit of, you know.
I think that's going back a little bit.
It's going back. I don't think they do it now. As you say, I don't think we do it now.
Yeah, we did used to do that. Yeah, definitely.
No. So, I mean, it's a little bit Americanized, isn't it? Commercialized football now.
And, now it is. It's a shame. Really. It is a shame. Yeah,
it is a shame because, I mean, as you say, walking up the steps at Arsenal, or Highbury, as I say, they were so solid. I remember going to away grounds, and as you're going up the steps, you're
tripping over them.
I remember going to Fulham, Craven Cottage, and I looked below me. There was gaps, and I could see him serving tea where I was sitting. You know, it's like, hold on, you know, and people used to smoke then as well.
Yeah,
it's frightening, absolutely frightening. We had was it Bradford Park Avenue, wasn't it? Yeah, the what happened there. But no one did anything. You could, if you're an ordinary guy, you go, I can see danger here. But the hierarchy or the FA, well, nothing's happened yet, so just get on with it.
I don't think we really appreciated the actual risk that there was at the time. I don't think we did. I certainly didn't. And yeah, maybe I was a bit younger and stuff like that. But for me, it was like you just went there. You knew that's what the experience was. And yes, it wasn't safe most of the time. But I certainly didn't really feel unsafe in a way. It was just normal. You just accepted it. Yes, Highbury felt a lot safer, definitely, because there was no fences in the ground for a start of. And it just felt you seemed to have, you wasn't crammed into little areas as much. Yes, sometimes there was a big crowd at Highbury and it was a little bit cramped, but a lot of the away ends, you were tucked into a little pen in a corner. It was cramped. You felt a little bit more unsafe, perhaps. But even then, you never felt. Well, I certainly never felt that anything bad would happen. It wasn't really until Hillsborough that you started to realise how much we've been lucky. Before, in so many occasions, we've been in similar situations that could have happened to us loads of times in the past, and we, by luck and good fortune, it didn't. But up until that point, I didn't really understand, or I didn't really feel real danger. It didn't feel safe always, but I never really. You just kind of felt, well, you're going to football, you're going to be fine. You're just going to football. You know what I mean? You are going to be fine. Ultimately, that's what you felt, wasn't it? For me, it did. I say it wasn't really till Hillsborough. It's suddenly, actually, that was wrong. We were in danger for the last 15 years. We've been in danger.
I don't think Hillsborough was the first one. There wasn't the Glasgow Rangers, Glasgow Celtic. Didn't have a problem there before.
Yeah, but that was. I think that was
Liverpool.
I think
Liverpool
that was the early
Cup Winners' Cup, the European Cup. Was that?
Yeah, but I mean, see, that was slightly different. Now, the Heysel thing was more for me. That was more. That was kind of crowd trouble, wasn't it? And a ground in Europe that wasn't very well maintained. And I just felt as though in England that wouldn't happen in England. You were never going to get a Heysel in England because there'd been a lot of trouble in grounds and nothing like that had happened. So you just kind of believe that it's never going to. And maybe that was wrong. Maybe we all should have realised how unsafe we were. But I don't think we did. I certainly didn't. No one I went with, we didn't come out of games. Yeah, sometimes you come out of games because there'd been trouble, or you'd been stuck on the wrong train, or you'd been stuck with the wrong lot of fans, and you thought, Jesus, that was fortunate. We got away with that one. But you never felt. I never felt inside the ground that there was going to be some sort of disaster was going to happen. Even though, looking back now, there were so many occasions when it could have. Not so much at Highbury at all. I don't really remember. Other than a few crowd trouble incidents against Tottenham and West Ham and stuff at Highbury, I don't really remember feeling in danger at Highbury. Yeah, some of the other away grounds you did because you were stuck in a pen in a corner, and that was no fun.
No, it wasn't. I did that as well. Right, let's go on to the seasons we're going to talk about, Richard. The 82-3 seasons. We were very good in the cup, but in the league weren't all that. We got 10th in the league. We got beat in the League Cup semi-final with Man United. I think it was also the FA Cup they did us in the semi-final as well.
They did, yeah.
I went to that game.
Yeah, I did.
That was at Villa Park.
Yeah,
we went 1-0 up.
Yeah.
And then they kicked us off the park, basically.
Well, what they did was they in that first half, Stuart Robson had ran that game in midfield for us. He'd been absolutely brilliant. He'd set up the goal, and we were 1-0 up and really comfortable. It looked as though I remember thinking at half time they were playing music over the tunnel. I was on the Holt end thinking about planning going to Wembley. I've got all the vouchers from the programme. I'll be
You're not a Spurs supporter, are you? Well, they only do that.
Well, I know I'm kind of planning my trip to Wembley. I've got all these vouchers. I'll get a ticket and everything like that. And then just before half time, Remy Moses basically kicked Stuart Robson out of the game. He just he didn't come out for the second half, and the game just ran away from us. They equalised straight after half time, and it was obvious we were going to lose then. But for 45 minutes, certainly I felt. That was the best I'd ever felt as an Arsenal fan up to that point because, it's only my second season really going to games, and to get to a semi-final of the FA Cup and to be 1-0 up at half time, that was, and after that, what happened over the next few years, that was like, I felt as though that was as good as it was ever going to get. A semi-final defeat at Villa Park. Of course, after that, things got a lot better, didn't they, by the end of the decade? But yeah, it was a good moment and a bad moment, I suppose, in a way, but the disappointment never leaves you, really, does it? Losing the semi-final.
No, you never forget those. I mean, we came, as I say, 10th. The top goal scorer in the league was Woodcock with 14 goals. He got 21 in all competitions. Brilliant player.
Brilliant.
You know who the next player was?
Would it have been Sunderland, Alan Sunderland?
No, it was Talbot, funnily enough.
Of course, he got a few from midfield, didn't he? Yeah.
Free kicks as well. Got a few free kicks.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Now then, this is our how it worked out with goals. We scored 58 goals. Is it 42 games then? I think it was in those days.
42, yeah.
It's not a lot, is it?
No.
We scored 58 goals, let in 56, and the points tally was 58. So not brilliant. Not brilliant at all. Anyway, one of the best games I've seen at Highbury. Though we got beat, we got stuffed. I mean, didn't expect to get stuffed. It's one of those games you just expect to win because it's Arsenal, isn't it? Who's this team? I don't know much about them. They come from Russia, Spartak Moscow. So easy peasy. I wondered if we're playing the next round. I'd be a bit like Richard, They beat us 5-2, and we were lucky to get 2.
Yeah.
They played some football, was unbelievable, like I haven't seen before. It was wonderful. And you know what? I vaguely remember it. The crowd clapped them off the field.
Yeah.
And they came back out again,
Yeah.
the Russians, to
Yeah.
take it away.
Yeah.
They were that good.
I seem to remember, and I don't know whether or not I'm thinking of the right game. Did we wear this green kit in that game, although we was at home?
I think we did.
I'm pretty sure we did, didn't we, in that game?
I haven't researched it, I swear to you, but the back of my mind, I think you're right. Yeah.
I've just got this image, and I know he was terrible for us, Lee Chapman. I'm sure he scored in that game, and I've just got this image of him scoring in this green kit at Highbury, which must be that game. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, we bought Lee Chapman.
Yeah,
we bought Lee Chapman. We had to pay over the odds for him because it went to a league tribunal. Yes. That means that we can't agree a price, so the league stepped in, and up north, funnily enough, and they decide what we've got to pay. They also decided, as we spoke a couple of weeks ago, but we had to sell Stapleton to Man United before as well. So that didn't work out too well either. But anyway, we got Chapman. I think he didn't score much. He wasn't a big hit for us. He wasn't really. I was told he didn't fit in basically on or off the field. I was told.
No.
And but wherever he went, he scored goals. He even got a winner against us, I think, playing for Sheffield Wednesday.
He got a lot of goals against Arsenal when he played for Leeds as well, didn't he?
Oh yeah, Leeds he scored against. That's right.
He won the league title, didn't he? He won the league title with Leeds.
Was he in the league title team?
Yeah, he won the league title. Yeah. Incredible. But,
unbelievable. But we did sign one of my favourite players, but then he left after about a year because they reckon the manager said he couldn't play away from home, and that was Petrovic. I used to love him.
Yeah.
What a player.
I mean, what he was, for me, Petrovic was a modern number 10, really, playing in the 1980s when it was kick and rush, it was long ball football.
Yeah.
And he was like a modern day kind of midfield player, wasn't he? And you could tell straight away. I remember we signed him in the summer, but he couldn't play because of some work permit issues and stuff. And it wasn't until January that he could play. And I remember his debut. We played Swansea at Highbury on New Year's Day, and it was his debut. And we were 2-0 up in 5 minutes. And that was because he had made a massive difference straight away. And you think, who is this guy? It was looked like he didn't fit in with 80s football because he was years ahead of him. He was so far ahead of what football was doing at that time, and he didn't like being tackled, and he wasn't a physical type of player. And I understood what maybe Terry Neal meant about the away games, but what a fantastic footballer he was. His passing ability. I remember he scored a free kick. I think it was against Stoke. Was it?
Villa. Was it in the cup as well?
I remember a free kick he scored, and it was like, wow, this guy was an incredible footballer. But unfortunately, maybe English football at that time wasn't ready for Vladimir Petrovic, unfortunately.
I mean, I went to, obviously, the home games. I went all the home games and some of the away games.
Yeah.
It was Villa he scored. He might have scored a free kick against Stoke as well. But I remember he took this free kick. It must have been about 25 yards.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, can he? And he went whoosh, hit this ball right in the top corner.
Top corner, yeah.
We won 2-0, quarter-final. And that game, I saw it on eBay. A West Upper reserve seat, right? Reserve, West Upper, it's a decent seat, £4.
Wow. Brilliant.
£4, yeah. Now look at these, some of these attendances, right? Now football then was quite harsh. It was a harsh sport. It was, you had to be tough to go to away games. You didn't go there, you know what I mean? It was really tough. You had to, you weren't taking your life in your own hands, but if you came home and you had a broken tooth or something, and blood, you wasn't like shocked. It was not nice. It wasn't
it was pretty standard. Yeah.
So, and also it was, I think, the country wasn't in a great way then. Things weren't going very well. There was a lot of unemployment, and I think this is one of the. And football wasn't sexy.
No,
it was for diehard supporters, whereas the opposite is for now. You've got your diehard supporters in every club, but you've got what I call the tourists. Even though they might live in his country, the
football
aren't really football supporters, but just want to go to football for the sake of saying I did the football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, when we first went to the Emirates, people used to sit in front of me, and basically, if you asked them during the game what the score was, they wouldn't know. They didn't have a clue.
No,
not a clue. And I suppose that's why they tell you at half time what the score is now at full time, which I can't believe. Anyway, that's another. Listen to this. Look at this, Richard. Some of these attendances. So this is away, all right? Sunderland, 11,000.
Wow.
Home to West Ham, which is always, we think, the big game. No matter
Mm.
where they are or we are in the league, it's a big
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
30,000. Home to Everton, big club,
Mm.
23,000. Where we Man United, this is the one I can't believe. Man United, 23,000. I think that was, we played them about 8 times that season.
Yeah, we did.
League
I think that was right at the end of the season. I think, you know, we got
right
knocked out in the cup. The season was over and no one could be bothered
Yeah,
anymore. And it was
exactly.
a very strange atmosphere, that game.
Stoke was 19,000 at home, which is not, I mean, probably, what was his name? The Stoke, no, not now. What was the recent manager, the last 10 years? What was his name? What was the name of the Stoke manager?
Tony Pulis.
Yeah, probably. I know he wasn't, but I suppose that could be a reason we had a bad crowd against him. Pulis might have been thinking of going there as manager.
Yeah,
so obviously,
he might have been playing for him then, actually.
Yeah, he might have done. Yeah, this is the one that got me as a very big club. Villa, 17,000.
Yeah, I think the thing with that Villa game was because they were actually reigning league champions, reigning European champions, wasn't they?
European champions, yes.
And because they were playing in the World Club Championship thing that it was at the time. That game got moved to a midweek, so it was like on a Tuesday night or something in December, and I think that's why that crowd was actually so low, because normally Villa would have attracted a bigger crowd, especially as at that time they were a very good side. But that game was moved to midweek in December, and I think that affected it. But I remember that game. Stuart Robson went in goal actually because George Wood got
sent off.
Yeah, Stuart Robson went in goal and he was brilliant.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Also, the biggest home game in the league was Spurs, 51,000 still.
Yeah.
That was Boxing Day, 27th of December. So it had probably been a Monday or from a Sunday was the day before that year.
Yeah.
But our cup games that season at Highbury were much, much bigger than our league games. Much. Really. I'm talking about 10 to 15,000 more at the same club in the cup that we played. Now, something happened, I found out today. Against West Brom, there was a record broken. Do you know what it was? If you do, it's amazing. And I don't know if it was, I think it was the away game.
The West Brom away game in 82, 83. Was that with Pat Jennings' 1,000th game?
Oh, shut up. Go away, yeah. I'm not inviting you on again. You can no way. You're off, mate. You're banned.
And it was a 0-0 draw, so he got a clean sheet as well.
Didn't know. I've never known that before. That came up when I was doing a bit of research on that.
Yeah.
Also, just one thing, a very sad one. We knew Petrovic was going that year, and his last game that I was going to watch him was away to West Ham. And I don't know if I've told you this. Don't stop me if I've told you. But I was taken from work from a good mate of mine, West Ham support, and he had this special seat where you go for a drink before the game in the stand, lower tier, and before the game starts, you've got a television there, black and white, but like old dirty old television, not like you do today. Yeah. Just before kick-off, you go down. I went straight from work, had a shirt and tie and a suit on, and I really looked forward to it. It's sunny, like not a summer evening, but sunny evening. End of the season.
End of the season, yeah.
Very nice, in a good mood. I'm not a big drinker, but I had a couple of drinks, so I was quite, chilled out. It meant nothing that game. As I was saying, we were 10th or 11th at the time, didn't we? But I was there to watch Petrovic. In the first couple of minutes, he goes down the right-hand side, crosses it, and Brian McDermott puts us 1-0 up. I stood up, like that, and I looked around me, and I realised I'm the only Arsenal supporter in that lower tier. And all the people had like tattoos with shorts, and they were the women. So as I went up, in slow motion, I went, offside linesman. And that saved me. That saved me, honestly, because I don't know what would have happened. My mate would have had to say to me, he's all right, he's a mate of mine, and push me out the ground, because I couldn't have sat there for the rest of the game. It had to happen. But that was a pretty, apart from the cups that we were involved in, a pretty uneventful season, really, wasn't it? It was.
It was a time of kind of change at Arsenal anyway, wasn't it, really? I mean, the one maybe shining light in that season for me was Tony Woodcock, because he was a player that I remember back in the 70s when he played for Forest. And I mean, my dad wasn't a massive football fan, but we used to watch football when it was on the telly. And I remember him saying to me once, I was only about maybe, 8 or 9, 10-year-old, and he said, Tony Woodcock was talking about him at Nottingham Forest, saying what a great player he was. I think they won a European Cup or something like that. And I'd always kind of, it'd always been in my mind, Tony Woodcock. So when Arsenal signed him, obviously he played for England as well. I'd seen him play for England, and I was really excited when we signed him, left-footed striker, and he was he was the one shining light that season. You know, we were very, very average. Let's be honest. We were even though we had a couple of good cup runs, we struggled through a lot of teams. You know, lower teams that we should have beaten easily. And in the league, we were average. But he stood out. He was a shining light above everything. Really, to me, he was a player that he became my favourite player very, very quickly because he was just a class above everything else that we had at that particular time.
It's true what you're saying. I mean, he scored in the league 14 goals. Take that 14 away from the 58 we scored. It don't leave a lot, does it? It's practically a goal a game we'd have without him. I know someone else would have played, blah, blah. But I tell you, he was a bit strange, though, Woodcock. I thought he was brilliant. He reminded me of a fly. He was very light.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? And he had a funny style about him. You probably can. I can't think of any other footballer forward who played the game like that. He was so light on his feet, so direct.
Yeah.
He could turn, twist. He was such a good footballer. And really, it's a shame that we didn't have a good team round him. We had good players, but not good enough. Because he really could have, well, he did well in Germany, we know that. But he could have gone on and won so many things. Hate to say it, with another team in the Division 1 as it was then. He was superb. I don't know. Do you know any player that reminds you of him?
Not really, actually. No. I mean, even now, I mean, he wasn't your sort of typical centre forward, especially in the 1980s. He was, and he wasn't really. I mean, he used to drift over to the left hand side quite a lot, obviously, because he was left footed. But he wasn't a wide player in the sense that you've got wide forwards now. And you were right. He had a very unique running style, didn't he? He almost ran on tiptoes a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I mean, I just thought he was. I mean, maybe my impression of him now, looking back, is it might be better than what he was, simply because everybody else around him was so average, and he stood out so much. He was like fantastic footballer amongst all that dross that was in that team at that. Not so much dross, but the team itself were very, very poor.
Yeah, and he was head and shoulders.
Yeah, he was, and he stood out, and I think he stood out for two reasons. One, because, like you said, he was slightly unusual in the way he played, and also because he was left-footed. And I do think left-footed players stand out more on the pitch, especially back then when there wasn't maybe as many of them. Now there seems every team's got 3 or 4 left-footed players, but back then, not many teams had that many left-footed players. I mean, we had Sanson, Ricks, and Woodcock on that left-hand side, and that was a pretty decent left-hand side actually. Yeah. And for there was about an 18-month period where that worked really well. We actually had quite a good team. We did pretty well. But we didn't maybe build on it enough. We didn't have enough balance in the rest of the team. But Woodcock for me was up until probably the George Graham kind of era. He was the best player Arsenal had that I saw.
Yes, yeah, he was fantastic. Now let's go on to the next season, 3-4. We come sick, but though we got knocked out in the FA Cup away at Middlesbrough, I think it was 3-2.
Yeah,
Woodcock scored 21 league goals that year, which we come to in a minute.
He did.
Charlie Nicholas got 11 and Mariner got 7. Now this is the points tally. We got goals for was 74, so we scored more. We let in 60, slightly worse, and we got 63 points, slightly better. Our first game of the season was at home to Luton, which was Charlie Nicholas's debut. We were so excited because I remember that he was the big thing from Scotland. Yeah. He was the real deal. And we were going in for him, and it was like Man United were having a look because they were the top team then. Liverpool were very, very interested.
Yeah, they were.
And normally we'd lose out to those two round about then. And for some reason, it might have been the bright lights. I'm not saying it was. It might have been. But he chose us, and we thought, we've got someone here. We have really got. He was going to hopefully be the catalyst to put us to the new level. Wasn't to be. We had to wait for a manager to come round to put us to the new level, not a player. But that season, he didn't score at home till November or something.
Well, he didn't score at home until the game between Christmas and New Year. That was his first goal at home. It was a penalty against, I think it was Southampton or Birmingham, somebody like that. There were 2 games in a row between Boxing Day and New Year's Day. We played at home. We drew them both, and he scored penalty in both games. But they were his first 2 goals at Highbury all season, and it was just before the turn of the year. So yeah, it was. It was a struggle.
I should have looked further into that because I was doing a bit of research and I'm reading about fans' letters used to send into the programme.
Yeah.
And one of them said, "Do you think Charlie will at least score in November at home?" I thought myself, he must have scored in November.
No, he didn't.
Right?
No, he didn't, no.
But he didn't. Wow.
No, he didn't.
But he had this neck. didn't he, of scoring important goals.
Yeah.
But he also had the knack of scoring against Spurs that season. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think he was a big game player. He was a type of player that needed something big to be playing for, rather than just your run-of-the-mill game against Notts County or Luton or whatever it was. He wasn't going to turn up on them games. But when we had an important game, like you said, Tottenham, he loved playing against Tottenham. The bigger games, obviously, we know later on he scored them 2 goals in the final against Liverpool, and they were the games where he rose to the occasion. He was definitely a big game player, which you do need a big game player, but unfortunately, in 90% of the games the rest of the season, he did very little generally, even though we all wanted.
That's why, Richard. That's why George didn't fancy him.
Yeah, exactly why.
He was never going to be a George player for loads of reasons. That is one of the main reasons.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I mean, we went. I remember going to Spurs, going and took White Hart Lane, and we beat them 4-2. Yes. And he had a wonderful game. He got 2 goals. He locked the keeper. I mean, that was fantastic. Yeah. I remember that. At home to Spurs, we won 3-2, and as you know, he scored a goal which was remarkable. Put it outside the box and beat about 2 or 3. Yeah. And then went past the keeper and just slowly put it across the line.
It just bobbled in, didn't it? It just bobbled in. Yeah, it was like, oh my God. Incredible.
Yeah, he didn't quite get there, we thought. But that was amazing. And also in the League Cup, we beat him 2-1. Yes. Which, looking back, some might think that perhaps it's a bit upset that we did win that game, because the next game was home to Walsall in the League Cup.
Yes.
And they were, I don't know if they were a 2nd or 3rd division then.
3rd division, they were. 3rd division, yeah.
And they beat us 2-1. And the next morning, I think we might have signed him just to take pressure off the news. We booked Tommy Caton.
Tommy Caton, yeah, I know, yeah. I mean, I remember I think he was watching in the stand that night because we just signed him.
That's right, he was.
And obviously we lost that game 2-1. We were 1-0 up at half time as well, which made it even worse. And I remember after the game, there was a lot of people upset, shouting at the main entrance or kneel out and all that kind of stuff. And that was when it really started. I think everybody had lost faith now. The previous season, like you said, we'd finished 10th, but we could easily have finished 16th, 15th, 16th. And this season, at that time, going in towards Christmas, we were 15th, 16th in the league. And for Arsenal, that's not acceptable for that length of time to be that poor, those positions. I don't think Charlie's lack of goals at home helped too much, if I'm honest, because I think I remember that summer when we signed Charlie Nichols, we had Woodcock from the season before, and you're thinking, this is looking good. And of course, as well, that summer was when David Dein joined the board of Arsenal. And I remember thinking at the time that up until that point, and I know I'd only been going for a couple of years at that point, but looking at previous programs and stuff and the history of the club, I kind of felt that even up to 1983, Arsenal was still stuck in the 1950s. They had the marching band, and it felt very old-fashioned being at Highbury, which was great. But I felt from 1983, that summer, David Dein came in, and suddenly, instead of having a program, we had a Matchday magazine. Instead of having a marching band, we had a DJ playing music. And it seemed to be modern suddenly. We became a lot more. The junior gunners, I think, were formed that year as well. And it just felt as though the club has suddenly got into the 20th century finally after 80 years. And that's what it felt like at that time. And I could sense, although that season was a bit of a disaster, certainly the first half of it, and Terry Neal got sacked and we got knocked out by Walsall and stuff, I kind of felt inside that there was maybe the club were moving in a new direction that they hadn't looked as though they had done before, into the modern era almost. And I think David Dein, looking back on it now, he was probably the man. I didn't maybe think that at the time, but looking back on it now, I think David Dein was the man that really instigated that change to modernise the club, bring us into the modern age.
Yeah, he modernised it big time and also monetised it a little bit, because I'm not saying this is his doing, but as I said to you, like the season before, Villa in the FA Cup, West Upper was £4. When we played Spurs at home, right, East Upper, £6.50. Now, I don't know if it's like for like, but it ain't far off. Yeah. It's gone up over 50%.
Yeah.
So he knew, he had a brain, he knew where the football was going or trying to get the club to a different level. So, we could talk about David Dein to the cows come home, couldn't we?
Yeah. I've got his book, actually. I've got his book for Christmas. I've just started reading it. It's
got it here. Yeah. We also, going back to Woodcock, when we played Villa, we scored. We beaten 6-2 at Villa Park.
Yes.
Tony Woodcock scored 5 goals.
He did. That was one of the away games that really sort of stood out from that era was that game, simply because it was so unexpected. Up until in that season, we'd either we'd either played well and won a game, maybe 2 or 3-0, or we'd got beaten 2 or 3-0. That was how that season had gone.
Yeah.
And you went to Villa Park, and I remember me and my mate were going up on the train there, and it's like at that time you didn't know what Arsenal were going to be there. Was it going to be the good Arsenal or the bad Arsenal? You just didn't have a clue. But that day, of course, it was the good Arsenal. And I mean, Woodcock was, I think he only had like 5-6 shots, and he scored like 5 goals. Everything he hit was going in, and it was incredible. And I think the other goal was scored by Brian McDermott. And I remember thinking, I'm sure, I know it's a long time ago, but I seem to remember that was up the other end of the ground to where we were. And at the time, we thought Woodcock had scored that one as well, but he hadn't. It was actually Brian McDermott. We thought he'd got all 6, but he didn't. He only got 5, but it's still some record. But yeah, I mean, Danny's put it in the chat. He said on the same day, Ian Rush scored 5 for Luton. Yeah, he did. And that was a post-war record.
That's amazing, man.
Scored 5 goals in the top division game since before the Second World War. And then on that same day, Woodcock scored 5, thinking, wow. And then when we was coming back on the train, we saw the results coming. You get there used to be a paper, didn't it? You could get at the station with all the results in. And we saw Ian Rush had scored 5 for Liverpool. It's like, oh my God, okay. His record didn't last long, did it?
That's amazing when you think about it. And it happens once in a blue moon, and we had 2 blue moons on the same day.
On the same day. I mean, no one would have believed that. The odds you'd got on that, I don't think it's ever happened since. I know other players have scored 5 goals, but I don't think you've had 2 players scoring 5 goals in different games on the same day at the same time, ever. I don't think it's ever happened again.
What about this one? I don't remember it, but I remember the story. Ted Drake scoring 6 at Villa as well.
That's right.
And I think the manager, Herbert Chapman at the time, when he got him in the dressing room, so the story goes, gave him a rucking for letting in a goal. I think they won 7-1.
Yeah, 7-1, that's right, yeah.
And he gave him a rucking. And I think another one of his hit the crossbar.
That's right. I think he had 7 shots. I think he scored 6 and hit the crossbar with the other one that day, Ted Drake. And I think Woodcock he had a similar kind of game. He had like 6 or 7 efforts at goal, 5 went in. I think we had a goal disallowed as well, which may have been Woodcock. I can't remember now. And I think it was Charlie Nicholas scored a goal that was disallowed in that Villa game. But anyway, I mean, that was just an incredible performance. And that was the thing for me that kind of reinforced that belief that Tony Woodcock was on a different planet to the rest of that team. At that time, he was just incredible.
He was amazing. Now, what we're going to do, go back to the year 1983. I'm not going to do 1982, 3 and 4 because I'm lazy. But this is what was happening around that time. Put my glasses on to actually see. The video game Mario Brothers was first released, Nintendo. Wow. The Brinks warehouse robbery took place at Heathrow.
Yes, I remember that.
I haven't spent it all yet. I've not recorded this, is it? Right. The first mobile phones are introduced to the public by Motorola company.
Oh, Motorola 1983, wow.
The final episode of something called MASH I used to watch. Have you used to
watch
MASH?
MASH? Yeah, Suicide is Painless. Yeah, brilliant.
And this is something I bought loads of, Cabbage Patch dolls. They were around that time.
I remember them actually, yeah. Was that 83 they came out, really?
Wow. 83, yeah. Wow. Fragile Rock premieres during the 1983 on HBO. Fraggle Rock, yeah, Fraggle Rock, yeah. Brilliant. The show was one of HBO's first original programs, and it was produced by Jim Henson.
Yeah.
Now these are some of the films which was out around about then. Tootsie.
Oh, I remember that. That's a great film.
Brilliant film.
That's enough.
Starman 3.
Right.
This was me at the discos then, Flashdance. They used to call me Flashdance.
Yeah, I remember Flashdance, yeah.
And the James Bond, Octopussy. They will be able to call it now, wouldn't it?
I saw that in the pictures, Octopussy.
And a typical, a very funny American one, National Lampoon's Vacation. Remember that?
Oh, that's a great film, yeah.
Some of the people that didn't first come out there, they were bigger this year, was Phil Collins, The Police, Hot Chocolate. Also, it was a great sound, was Big Country. Do you remember them?
Yeah, brilliant. They were great. A Scottish band, yeah, they were brilliant, yeah.
What's he saying? Oh, he says, I was about 4'9" and good looking.
I had Charlie Nicholas' hair, believe it or not, in 1983. I know it seems hard to believe now, but I actually did, so there you go.
No, it was bad, Danny. It wasn't bloody awful.
No, it's funny. I think it's a funny film. It's a great 1980s film, that.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a bit dated, but it's not awful. It's all about opinions. David Bowie was big then. Black Sabbath, Johnny Cash. Right, what we got here? What we got here? Now then, this is also what was happening then. Prices of things in '83.
Ooh.
Pint of beer. What would it cost in '83?
What
did you spend on of your wise money then on beer?
Cool. I would say, what would a pint of beer have been '83? Well, I don't know. I think it would have been less than £1. You know, I don't know. 85.
It was.
Was it less than £1? But 85p or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
something like
67p.
Was it? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which if you put inflation into the equation, it works out at £1.90. So it's just below in it. What's a pint of beer now? 3-4 quid? I'm not a drinker.
No, I'm not a drinker, but yeah, you must.
Not talking about Arsenal, Emirates beer. That's 28 quid probably.
I know you don't count that. That's well above
inflation. Thank God inflation ain't measured on Highbury on the Emirates. Eh?
Yeah.
Right, a pint of milk then, what will that cost?
Oh, I don't know, probably 25p.
Not bad, 21, which is 59p. Oh. So that's cheaper than.
It's cheaper than now, isn't it?
Really not gone up at all. Things that have come down in price. Do you remember the VHS recorders?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What do you reckon one cost then?
See, a lot of that kind of electrical stuff was really expensive then, wasn't it? What it is now, because the technology was quite new. I don't know, probably 150 quid.
400 quid.
For a VHS, really?
Yeah, from Curry's. I know they're dear Curry's, but that's what they charge. And if you put it into inflation, Richard, it's 1,100 quid. So
for a VHS video player, that is brilliant.
Yeah. What else are we going for here? And, this is where you expect it to be like this. An average house price then. When I say average, I don't know what part of the country, it was the whole of the UK or whatever.
83.
Probably everything.
I don't know, 40 grand maybe.
Good. 36,000.
Was it?
Which inflation is 100 grand. And the rest of the stuff, there's one other thing, a Ford Sierra.
Ford Sierra, brilliant.
Well, that can do.
What, brand new one?
Brand new. I wouldn't sell you a second hand one, would I, Richard?
No, brand new. 83 and brand new Ford Sierra. What do you reckon? 4 grand?
No, it's 5,750, which is 16 grand. I mean, probably, what's it now? 20 grand, I should think. So ain't far off, is it?
Yeah,
you for a Ford, that type of car. I mean, obviously they don't sell them anymore.
Brand new, you'd probably pay 25 grand, wouldn't you? Probably now.
Yeah.
I would say.
Right. Now we're going to show you, ladies and gents, some programs.
Oh, brilliant. I love the old program.
That's the
the Spartak Moscow one. Yeah.
Like that. Does it make it any easier for people to see or not?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, and my eyesight.
No, is it better? No, bigger, yeah?
Yeah, no, it looks better like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can see that. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah,
that's West Ham, isn't it?
That's the game. The picture's the game against West Ham. John Hawley, actually, which was he was a great player, wasn't he? Not.
Yeah. In fact, he had his best game for us. I think we played Southampton last home game of the season, and we thought,
yeah,
bloody hell, he had a decent game at once. I think we sold him just after that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Shot window job, I reckon that was.
That that season, that program had the same. It's a different picture, but it had the same cover, didn't it? Single, and some of them had the same picture as well. 2 or 3 games in a row, I seem to remember. Because I used to buy the programs then all the time.
Yeah, I used to get them also. Got too many of them. The inside page when you had Voice of Arsenal.
Yeah, wow.
That was lovely. You had all our. I can see that says Arsenal. You know, the game's coming on. This will not be. What do you say? I can't even see what that says.
Well, the West Ham. It says West Ham. This game will not be all ticket. West Ham at home, not all ticket. Imagine that now. Incredible.
That's lovely. Voice of Arsenal. They used to like that. Stadium tours. They did stadium tours then. Yeah, it's just the changing rooms and they can go home. There wasn't a lot to see then, was it?
Yeah, there's the marble halls and there's a changing room. There's
the marble halls, sorry, yeah. You get the marble halls for nothing though.
Yeah.
Years ago,
I've been there a couple of times when I was younger. Yeah, I used to go there all the time.
Fantastic.
Wow.
This is the game that we beat Spurs.
Yes.
Graham Ricks on the ball.
Yeah, that looks like against Birmingham, that picture.
Yeah, hold on, it's not Man City, hold on.
It looks like
Birmingham. Yeah, Birmingham.
I think it's Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah, Birmingham, yeah.
11 o'clock kickoff as well. I remember that game, actually, because that was a massive crowding, wasn't it? Like 50 or 1,000. It was the biggest crowd, the biggest crowd I've been to at that point. And yeah, that was a great game. Now we got someone. I think Stuart Robson was sent off in that game. We won 2-0.
Was that the game he got sent off for doing Graham Roberts twice?
Yeah, well, no, he did Graham Roberts first, got booked, and then he did another foul on someone else, Tony Galvin or somebody, and got a second.
I thought it was Roberts twice.
And got sent off.
When he went in to tackle him, I put my hands over me. I thought, no, not Roberts.
Yeah,
he smashed him. Yeah,
he did smash him. Yeah, he properly smashed him. Yeah, well, Graham Roberts deserved it. I didn't he?
Let's look at the Spurs teams anyway. Not that we should, but we will because we're fair, aren't we? We're fair people down here. We're fair.
See, that's not a bad Spurs team, that
Terrific,
isn't it?
I think where the weakness was there, to be rude, and I am being rude, is Paul Price. He come from Luton, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
never quite made it at Tottenham.
I mean, Gary O'Reilly wasn't up to much either, was he? Gary O'Reilly wasn't great.
Look at that forward line: Crooks, Hoddle, Galvin, Archibald. Mabbutt was good. Roberts was Roberts. Ricky Villa, the good team.
Chris Hughton was a good player. Chris Hughton was a good fullback.
Yeah.
Clements, obviously, Ray Clements. I mean, he was. I know he was past his best by that point, but he was still a good goalkeeper.
Oh, terrific! But also, if you know, we still had the Metropolitan Band, the '82-3 season.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think that was the last season they played regular, wasn't it?
I think he nicked their trumpets, didn't he, Dean? Stop them playing.
Yeah, I think he must have done.
Couldn't get rid of them in the other way.
He took the baton away, so he couldn't throw it up in the air all the time. That's what he did.
Yeah, this is what you like from that the season. You might like this. Let's get that.
I remember that picture.
How good is that?
George Graham's there. Look, George Graham's in it.
Well, it's a 71 double team with the 83 team, I think, 82-3 season team. Some real legends there. Look at George Graham. He looks so cool, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he? He always looked cool, though, didn't he?
Yeah.
Brilliant. What a brilliant picture that is. That is amazing,
terrific, isn't it?
Look at it. What a picture. I mean, they are some of the great Arsenal players of all time there, isn't there? Kenny Sanson's there as well. Unfortunately, Lee Chapman kind of ruins it a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, I try to get him off the thing. I try to get it Photoshop, but they wouldn't let me do it.
John Radford.
Yeah.
Oh, what Georgie Armstrong, of course. Sammy Nelson. Look at that. Pat Rice. Brilliant. Oh, my God. What a picture.
Peter Simpson. In my day, when I first started watching, just after I started watching, after about a few years, Peter Simpson played in the double year, and he was he was unlucky. Bobby Moore was the number 6 for England, and behind him was Munter. So he had very little chance of getting in, but he was such a good player.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, they all were in the 70-71 season, to be honest with you. They were all fantastic.
Oh, legend, all of them. Absolutely brilliant.
Terrific. This is the Spartak cover. What did that look like? Oh, that's one of the similar things, though, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I want to show something. I think I've done that.
Yeah, you've done that one before. Yeah, the Spartak.
Now I'm going to go on to next season.
I used to love that program. Because it was
so different, though, isn't it? The styles changed completely.
I love the cannon on it. I just think that's a brilliant design. I love the program from that season. They were different every game. The picture was different. It was just fantastic.
And a little bit of advertising there, Richard, bottom right, that you don't notice.
Yeah, the JVC.
Is that the Brighton forward on the right?
No, that was. It looks like Aberdeen. I think we played Aberdeen in a friendly pre-season.
Oh, Willie Miller.
Willie Miller, yeah, and that's action from that, because that was Luton the first game of the season, wasn't it? That program.
Yeah, Charlie Nicholas.
We just played. I think it was Aberdeen in a friendly just before the season started.
So that was it.
Strange Arsenal kit, that, isn't it? By the way, it's quite nice, isn't it? I kind of quite like it, really. It's sort of a mixture of the home and away kit from that season.
Obviously, something went wrong in the wash, didn't it?
I think so, yeah. But it's quite nice.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can see this on here, but seeing it live. See if I can make this bigger.
Oh, wow, the reserves and youth, yeah.
Talking about all the reserves. Can you work out talking about all these young boys coming through that became first teamers? And then we didn't know what they're going to be like. Got Gus Caesar, talking about. Martin Keown.
Martin Hayes.
Tony Adams.
Yeah, Tony Adams. Yeah, well, Tony Adams made his debut that season in the first team, didn't he? Against Sunderland in 1983. Really? Yeah, and I mean that season actually was the kind of, that's what I mean. From that season, we seem to sort of transition a little bit more quickly. I mean, that season, Tony Adams made his debut against Sunderland at home. And obviously, we bought John Lukic as well that summer. So he made his first appearance later on that season as well. Obviously, 2 players that went on to win the league title, league cups and stuff, were part of that George Graham team. And that was kind of the start of the building of that team, I felt. Because
you've got Martin Hayes there, haven't you, as well?
Martin Hayes, yeah. He was in the reserves and the youth at that point. I mean, I used to sometimes still watch the reserves back then, up 83, 84. I would have still gone to some reserve games. I mean, I was going to a lot of away games then, but I still went to see the reserves quite a bit. You know, Niall Quinn, I think, might have been playing at that point, possibly. Rocastle as well. He's on that team sheet down there. David Rocastle, he was playing then. It says Thomas. I don't know if would that have been Michael Thomas? It probably would have been, actually, because he'd have been there 83, wouldn't he?
Well, they've got someone that can't be the same one. They've got Allenton. That's not the one that, because George Graham was there.
No, yeah, Ian Allinson, yeah, it would have been Ian Allinson from Colchester.
That can't be, because did George Graham buy him?
No, he came in 83. We bought him in 83.
Oh, I thought George bought him.
And just another one I just want to mention on that team sheet at the bottom there, the last player, number 11, John Purdy, he was actually came on the channel a while ago.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah. He never quite made it at Arsenal in the first team, but he played in the reserves with people like Rocastle and Adams and Keown and Martin Hayes and all them lot. He came through that same group.
Right.
So he was good to have on the show. He had a book out actually a while ago. Really interesting book.
Hold on a minute, I do remember him now. Yes, I do remember. Yes,
he was a little left winger at the time when he played for Arsenal. I saw him playing in reserves a few times, and he was decent then. He never quite made it.
Well, so many of them. I mean, quite a few made it from the reserve and the youths we just looked at. That's quite a big percentage, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, massive. I mean, that was a time when I know people talk about hailing now, and rightly so, but back then that was when our youth academy was really first started to really kick in again, didn't it? Because we'd had a good spell. Obviously, the double team, as you mentioned, most of them had come through the youth system, and then we had a bit of a lull, hadn't we, through the rest of the 70s and the 80s, and suddenly this group here, a lot of them players went on to do great things with Arsenal, didn't they?
This is a nice one. This is quite not current, but about the timing.
That's great, isn't it? Look at that. What a kit as well.
I mean, yeah, lovely, isn't it?
Charlie Nicholas. I mean, he's an absolute god, and look at him, just absolutely fantastic. Shame he couldn't have played as. We all saw how great he could be, Charlie, on his day. And if he could have played like that more consistently, he would have been a brilliant player for us. You know, we'd have probably won.
Oh yeah.
He had the ability, didn't he? He just didn't have the right attitude, really. Stuart Robson next to him as well. I used to love Stuart Robson. He was a great player.
He was our captain, you know, at a very young age, a bit like Tony Anderson.
He was captain. Yeah, he was a great. I mean, there's some great players in that team sheet. Actually, you look at that. You look through there. Obviously, Lukic is there. You know, brilliant. John Lukic, what a goalkeeper he was. Obviously, Sampson, Woodcock, Brian Talbot, Robson, Nicholas, Paul Davies. You know, Graham Ricks. I mean, what great players! Alan Sunderland, David O'Leary. Yes. How did that team not achieve more?
I don't know.
How did it not really achieve more?
Do you think because it was London? Do you think it was something to do with that? I'm not saying they didn't try, but up north years ago, I remember my uncle and my father telling me, if you go up north to win a game up there, you've got to really want it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think perhaps the winning at all costs wasn't quite in their mind. I might be doing them a big disservice, and I apologise if I am, but I got the feeling just watching the Arsenal teams and watching teams come down from up north and all that, and watching a few away games, that it was different. The whole thing was different. It was like the players for the Arsenal, fantastic. You've got to be a great footballer to do that, obviously, but that was good enough to certain players. Not all of them. To some of them, I felt it was good enough to wear the shirt, not good enough what you did in it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I mean, I asked Paul Davies about that when he was on the show a while ago, and he was sort of saying that, obviously there were some great players. It didn't quite work as a team for whatever reason, you know, and sometimes it doesn't, does it? You know, maybe partly to do with the managers at the time, I don't know. But it was a shame because there was the basis there of a very, very good team. And we just had one or two weak links, obviously, that positions that we needed to. Right back was a bit of a problem at that time, I seem to remember. And we bought Viv Anderson at the end of that season because there was an issue at right back. We never really had a decent right back. I think Colin Hill at one point was playing right back, who wasn't a particularly great player, was he? I don't know if you remember him.
Colin Hill?
Colin Hill, yeah.
Yeah, he was a right back who played like a centre half playing at right back. And when he played at centre half, he played like a centre half that was really a right back. He was like in between, wasn't he? He wasn't.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was a strange one, wasn't he? But so we had an issue at right back, was a weakness in that team. But you know, I thought, you know, certainly up front when we bought Paul Mariner later in the season, I think that we had one of the best attacks in the league, and that showed as well because we had a time sort of the second half of this 83-84 season, the first half of 84-85, we actually had a really good team that played really good football, scored a lot of goals. We were winning games. We were top of the league, I remember at one point. But then we just lacked that little bit. When we lost the game, everybody decided they wasn't going to bother anymore. And then we lost 3, 4, 5 games quite quickly. And there seemed to be that thing was missing. And obviously George Graham came in and changed that mentality. And that's what we needed. If we'd had George Graham in this 83-84 team, a manager like that, I think that team could have actually won something, because you could see there was something there. They had something about them, very, very good players, but just wasn't quite able to do it consistently. And like you said, away from home against Liverpool or Everton or, Man United away, we never turned up, do we?
I mean, perhaps it was to do with the manager. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
they lost a little bit of respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, Don Howe came in, didn't he? Obviously, halfway through that season, as we said, Terry Neal did get sacked in the end as the right decision. And Don Howe came in. And what surprised me was, as a coach, Don Howe had been very, very defensive, hasn't he? Really defensive for England, for Arsenal, in the double team, very solid defensively. Suddenly he became manager of Arsenal, and we were winning games by 4-3. We were scoring loads of goals. We were conceding loads of goals. Like I said, that season we scored 73 goals, conceded 60. You know what I mean? That's not Don Howe, and that's what we were like. And for some reason, I don't know why, when he became manager, it was just like, let's just go for it. He played 3 up front, Mariner, Woodcock, and Nicholas. Must have been one of the first managers really in England to play basically a 4-3-3 formation, which was unheard of. It was all 4-4-2, and he put 3 strikers on the pitch.
Right,
and we scored loads of goals. We conceded those. It was great to watch.
It was fantastic when it came.
Yeah. For about I don't know, what was it? Maybe 6 months, 7 months during 1984, we were brilliant to watch. Absolutely fantastic team to watch. Scoring goals, conceding goals, brilliant. But it didn't last, obviously. Unfortunately, it would have been good if it did, but it didn't.
Right, we just got my glasses back on. So, there you are, Richard. Right. What's Loud Kid said again? Back then, you could spend 2 weeks. I didn't know that. Is that right?
Yeah. No, I remember that. Yeah, you could help out painting. Yeah. And
also, Danny's put here that kit was that the kit we saw for the mix and match.
Oh, right, one-off.
Yeah, it was a one-off the Scotland tour. Oh, right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it was a nice kit actually, but I never saw us ever wear it any other time, so it must have been a one-off. Brilliant.
Like Paul Davis, like a lot of Arsenal fans, he's
we love Paul Davis.
Terrific.
Wow,
absolutely terrific.
Yeah, he was.
Real Arsenal. Right, Richard, thanks very much. Thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
That's been brilliant.
I thought you were going to be a bit nervous, but you weren't, so I was quite happy about that.
Well, I settled into it. I
managed to get you through,
Yeah, no, your guidance was so important. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So it's been good. I mean, to be honest with you, I love the old kind of games, and I love looking back on all the old times and that. And what's happened with this series, the Highbury Matters, has been, obviously from the start, it's gone back to memories before I was even born and before I even knew football existed. So to hear those memories from people that were there has been fantastic. And now, obviously, we're getting more into an era that I remember. The last 3 or 4 shows that you've done have been things that I can remember as well. And obviously, going forward now, it's slightly different in the fact that I can relate to them. Like, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. I remember this. Whereas before, it was just like listening to stories and thinking, wow, what a brilliant time that must have been. So it's really good, actually. And I think that, people, maybe younger fans these days that maybe don't know what football was like back then, at Highbury, never experienced Highbury and never experienced all of that thing. People might think, oh, I'm not interested in that, but become interested, listen and find out this great stuff, because without Highbury, Arsenal, as you know it today, wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking about Arsenal without what happened at Highbury, without being at Highbury. And all those great, yes, and these particular seasons weren't great seasons, as we said. We struggled. We weren't a great team, really. We should have been. We wasn't. We struggled, but it doesn't matter, because this is all part of what's built the club to become, what it was and what it is and what it hopefully will always be, which is one of the greatest clubs in the world.
We've got a history that is second to none, in my opinion. I know I'm biased. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. And as you say, I've been for years supporting the Arsenal, and we've been dross. Absolute. Yeah. I've managed to read all the programme back to front. The game's been so bad. right?
Yeah.
And yet the next week I'm looking forward to going. I can't wait, and that is what I'm like. You know, and a lot of other people are like that as well. Right, Richard, time is up. They tell me I've got the producer in my ear. Saying the time is up. Thanks again. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah,
And let's hope we do it New Year's Eve, eh?
Well, let's hope so. Tough game, but we're doing well at the minute. Let's keep it going. Keep the momentum going. Brilliant. What we want to see. Thanks
to everyone who's watching, and thank you to the people that are going to watch it, hopefully on YouTube. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. All the best. Bye.